Welcome, everybody, to the 9th episode of Unpacking Software from Chocolatey Software. Today, we have another slice of chat, expert opinions on the latest software news, and we do this every third Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. UTC. So please join us in future for this. You can catch up on all of our previous Unpacking Software streams on our YouTube channel as well. We also make this particular stream available as a podcast, and you can download and listen to that at your leisure on your favorite podcast manager. But that is not all. No. We have another live stream on the first Thursday of each month called Product Spotlight, where we spotlight Chocolatey products, discuss releases, highlight features, and walk through tutorials and demos. So to be sure you get notified of all the great Chocolatey content that we create, ensure you join us on our community hub on Discord, subscribe to us on YouTube, and make sure you click the notification bell. That's really important, and that'll let you know when we're next streaming. You'll get a notification of that. You can also follow us on social media on Twitter or X, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We're on all the things, and you can find all of those links on our homepage, chocolatey.org. Just scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll find it there. Or alternatively, in the description or wherever you found this content. But we want to make sure we hear from you about the content that we were producing. Is it what you want to see in here? Do you have any ideas of what you like to see? Have your say at ch0.co/stream survey. There is 3 questions on that survey. One of them is mandatory, and that's just a rating for the actual stream itself. But the other questions are all optional. There's 3, as I said, in total. That's also on the screen. If you're watching the live stream, you can see it there just now. So, my name is Paul Broadwith. I'm the Technical Engineering Manager here at Chocolatey Software, and today I'm joined by our Principal Software Engineer, Gary Ewan Park, and our Customer Solutions Manager, Stephen Valdinger. Hey, guys.
Hi, Paul.
Hi.
So, we're just going to jump straight in to all that chat and expert opinions. Stevie, Windows Server Update services are being deprecated.
It's finally going away. Yeah, Server 2025. They've officially announced that they are not putting any more effort into WSUS. You will have to seek out alternative methods. They are, of course, going to recommend that you use something like Azure Update Manager, but there are a number of third-party RMM tools out there that tout the ability to do patch management as well. Avanti's a big one. Ninja One's a big one. You can use Chocolatey to package a Windows Update if you want to build your own stuff. So you've got options, but this has been a long time coming, I feel like, right? WSUS has been around for a very long time. It's kind of been a pain in the butt to manage for a very long time as well. I know back when I was doing it, the easiest way to fix WSUS was to burn it to the ground and start over. Hopefully Microsoft comes out with a few more solutions, recommendations for migrating other than pushing everybody into the cloud and Azure. Because I'm sure there are customers of Microsoft out there that cannot go to the cloud for whatever reason, and they will need some sort of an on-prem solution moving forward. So I have a feeling that we're not done hearing from Microsoft about what's going to come down the pike, but I have not heard any rumblings on what they might be doing to replace WSU for like on-prem stuff. I know they do like the Windows Update for Business thing that does a peer-to-peer kind of connection across the network for distributing updates. That's kind of neat. I've used that in the past, and it worked. It was okay. But when I used it, it was like the brand new thing. They had just announced it, so we tried it out. But yeah, it's interesting to see. And it's definitely a long time coming. WSES has been hard to manage for a very long time.
But they've made it clear. Well, I actually haven't made it that clear. But as you mentioned, it'll be in Server 2025, and Microsoft give their server operating systems 10 years of updates and support. So it's going to be around for at least 10 years. So I don't think anybody just now. But
Yeah,
I
no
like
need to panic.
this. It kind of did what it had to do. It kind of worked. You know, it wasn't great, it wasn't wonderful, but it just kind of worked. So it's a bit of a
Yeah. It was actually a lot more feature rich than some people might realize. Like, you could roll out applications with it as well. There was a way for you to like package up, say, Adobe Reader or something, and use it to deploy that stuff as well. It was extra configuration and it didn't really work all that great. Um, but yeah, it could do more than just Windows updates if you really, 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 really tried hard and needed it to. Um, I thought that was kind of interesting, but it never really worked very well in the couple of times that I attempted to do it in past lives. But yeah, pretty interesting.
so
Finally
it's
going away.
maybe I'm just getting old, but I find it disappointing that yeah, it's gone away. It's like the rock stars from when you're young. They're all because everybody gets old and dies. It's that kind of thing. These things that oh no, they're gone. It's a bit like W sus for me. Not saying they're like rock stars. I should just stop talking. But yeah, I'd used W sus for a very long time, and it was I quite liked it. But yeah, everything comes to an end.
Yeah.
Okay. So the kind of next one, actually, if you're a user of Firefox, should I say, you've probably used uBlock Origin. Actually, if you're a user of Chrome, you've probably used uBlock Origin as well. But we're talking about Firefox in particular here. There's also uBlock Origin Lite, which the maintainer put together just to make it a bit easier. uBlock Origin and uMatrix, which are from the same developer, are a little bit complicated. So they put together uBlock Origin Lite, made it a bit easier. However, Firefox has decided, or Mozilla, should I say, decided to flag the extension in September for reasons that weren't quite accurate. They flagged it for collecting user data and containing potentially machine generated code. And they removed all versions of that extension except the earliest one, which seems a bit strange. You would leave, if you're going to leave one, leave the most up to date one, surely. Not the
Yeah.
earliest one, which immediately is out of date. Maybe it's vulnerable. You would leave the latest one. So that was a bit strange. So the developer has went, well, I haven't got the time. I haven't got the motivation to take the burden on of dealing with, as he says, hostile review processes from Mozilla. So they've dropped it from the Firefox store, or the Mozilla add-on store, I think it's probably called, and it's now hosting it on their GitHub, um, and it can be automatically updated from there. So the last version you'll get from the Firefox Mozilla store will be, I think it was not quite the latest one, but not long ago. So it will still be available from there, but you need to go to the GitHub to get the latest one, which automatically updates. But I just think again, we've seen this with. I'm an Android user, so we've seen this with the Play Store. It's been talked about as well with the Apple Store. They're all pretty much the same. They're because they've got a monopoly on the platforms that they've got. They seem to be quite hostile sometimes towards particular apps in their ecosystem. Firefox is maybe not the same in terms of the Play Store and the Apple Store. They're a browser, and people can jump to other browsers. But it just seems to say to people that they're wanting to really lock down on this stuff. Firefox, or Mozilla, should I say, has been doing a lot of weird stuff with Firefox recently, and in general with the organization, having purchased an ad company recently as well, and then putting that into Firefox. It's just I don't know where they're going, why they're doing this. It just seems to be the start of the ball rolling down the hill. They don't have I think it's like 3% of the browser share as well.
Is it as small as that? Is it?
I think it's something like that. It's something very small. Somebody hopefully correct me in the chat, but it's definitely less than 10%. And I'm sure it's down at like something like 3. I'm sure I'd read that not that long ago. So, you would hope that they would be trying to encourage people and encourage maintainers and developers to create add-ons for their browser, because if people are going to come along and use a browser, they're going to look for these add-ons. If the add-ons are not there, they're just going to go to the browser next door where the add-ons are.
That's it.
And do
Especially if you're used
that.
to having uBlock, because uBlock works across browsers, right? So You'd be used to having
But-
it in one and want to use it in
Yeah.
another one. So
Yeah, it's available for Chrome as well. I don't know if they've dropped it from the Chrome store. I don't know whether whether they've never done that. I genuinely don't know. I don't use Chrome. I use Firefox, which is why this is concerning for me.
I mean, you've got to imagine that there's the update mechanism that they've had to put in play to get it to work in the same way, like auto updating from GitHub. It might make sense to do that for all browsers, but then that takes it away from those stores or those extension hubs, whatever they're called within the browser.
I think all it'll mean there as well is that the browser store maintainers or people that control that will just clamp down on that as well.
And prevent being able to do it that way.
Yeah. From what I understand, the maintainer, when the latest version was eventually published, because Mozilla did apologize, it was a mistake, etc., and then they approved it. So the maintainer then grabbed this, because they sign it, grabbed it from there and then put it onto their GitHub and said, use this one, because it's now signed.
Gotcha. I see.
And that's how they've got, you can actually install it from a folder as opposed to installing it from the store. So it just seems to be a bit of a mess. I don't know what Mozilla are playing at. As I said, there's things going on that they're doing. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know what direction they're heading in. And it's a bit concerning, given that everything else is Chrome based apart from Safari. Everything else is Chrome based. This is Gecko based. And if Mozilla continue to do this and continue down that road, we're going to have non-Chrome browsers left, which is going to be a shame.
James is saying in the chat it's 4.4% of total share.
Oh, okay.
Firefox.
Okay. I wasn't far off. So yeah, disappointing. Particularly for probably two of the most used extensions, I would suggest. uBlock Origin Lite, and also, as I said, uMatrix there as well, which they previously dropped from the store for similar reasons quite some time ago. So yeah, disappointing. Okay, so we're going to look at some Chocolatey news. So as we've kind of talked about at the beginning, unpacking softwares from Chocolatey Software. We're all members of the Chocolatey team here. So we're going to look at some Chocolatey news. And one of the first ones we're going to pick up is announcing the release of Chocolatey Central Management 0.13.0 and 0.13.1. Gary, do you want to tell us more about that?
I can certainly try. So we shipped all the way back in September. We shipped the 0.13.0 release of our product, Chocolatey Central Management. This was a big release for us. There's quite a lot of work that went on behind the scenes with this one. There are some breaking changes in this release. So for anyone who knows me and who knows Chocolatey and how we version things, normally this would be a major change, so a major version number change. But as we are not currently at a 1.0 release of Chocolatey Central Management, it is being shipped as a minor release, so 0.13.0. But there are some breaking changes in there, and I want to make sure to highlight that. The two breaking changes is we've updated everything that is Chocolatey Central Management to target .NET 8. So if you don't have .NET 8 available, then you won't be able to run Chocolatey Central Management. And the other breaking change is that due to an uplift in .NET 8 and a change to how Entity Framework and associated things work, we've actually had to drop support for SQL Server 2012 and SQL Server 2014. So if you were running Chocolatey Central Management using SQL Server version of 2012 or 2014, it's no longer going to work. So the recommendation there obviously is to upgrade your SQL Server instance, and during the installation of Chocolatey Central Management packages, it will actually check to see if the server that you're installing it onto supports the required version. So you'll actually get an error message reported to you if the version of SQL Server doesn't match what we need. So that's the breaking changes side of things. Like I say, the big change there is the uplift to .NET 8, and the driving force for that is that, and Paul will correct me on this when I get it wrong, but I'm going to try and get it right. .NET 6, support for .NET 6 actually ends in November this year. So the idea there is that we ship this version of Chocolatey Central Management, giving folks time to get the instances uplifted, running on .NET 8, and going forward, what we're going to aim to do, because of the release cadences of the long-term support versions of .NET 8, we'll always have a corresponding version of Chocolatey Central Management just before, a few months before that deadline of when that LTS version goes out of support. We'll have a version of Chocolatey Central Management that supports the new LTS version. And by LTS version, I obviously mean the even numbers of .NET. So the next one would be .NET 10 when that ships. Insert time period here. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head.
November 2026.
2026. There we go. So that's what that was the main driving force behind that. And what we did in terms of functionality, it was more about improvements of Chocolatey Central Management. What we've done under the hood is we have switched the way that we render the UI, and we're now using the internal thing that we refer to as Choco Theme. So we've now got consistent look and feel, rendering, all those things across all of our web assets now. So across our docs website, our blog website, etc. And now within Chocolatey Central Management website, we're using that same code base that is Choco Theme to control the look and feel and the behavior side of things. So it's great to see that coming into play. And the other part of that was that we've also started on our journey for WCAG compliance. So that's the Web Consortium Accessibility Guidelines. It's something like that. Web content.
Yes.
So close.
You
don't like acronyms. I'm sorry. So our WCAG compliance is journey. We've started that, and as part of this release, we have started bringing in. Part of the reason for bringing in Choco Theme was so that we could start that journey and have it consistently across all of our web assets. So it's exciting to see that coming down the pipeline as well. So that was a 0.13.0 release, and then swiftly followed, obviously, because it's just the way things work. We then released a 0.13.1 release, so a hotfix release of Chocolatey Central Management. That was to address a couple of UI bugs that were introduced in the uplift to 0.13.0. One was we were one of the tooltip sections, or the description sections of the website, was actually had the wrong tooltip for the actual checkbox that was in play. The other one is that we accidentally made a input box disabled when it wasn't meant to be disabled, so we've corrected that. And then a slightly bigger one was what I mentioned before, where we dropped support for SQL Server 2012 and 2014. The check that we put in play was actually misreporting that the latest version of Azure SQL was no longer supported. The problem there, unbeknownst to us, and I would have to speak to someone in Microsoft to find out the right answer for this, but Azure SQL version doesn't match SQL Server version numbers. So even though they're essentially equal, they don't have the same version number. What they have instead is a compatibility level version number. So we had to change things up to correctly identify the compatibility level version rather than the reported SQL Server version. Because what that meant was on Azure SQL, which we use within our Chocolatey quick deployment environment, you weren't able to install the latest version of Chocolatey Central Management. So we've addressed that, and that's what was in the 0.13.1 release of Chocolatey Central Management, which literally shipped yesterday. So grab it while it's hot, because it's out there and available for installation.
The SQL Server versions you mentioned, 2012, 2014, are not supported by Microsoft.
That's a very good point. Yes. And
so
that was one of the...
Support.
Say it again.
They're out of support, so most people, or the vast majority of people, won't be using them anyway.
Correct, and that was part of the reason that we were quote unquote happy to deprecate support for that, was because we are matching, as we've done with other things, that Microsoft themselves no longer support it. So we, as a company, are not going to build on products that are no longer supported. Yes.
Awesome. So yeah, as Gary said, 0.13.1 went out yesterday with that with those small fixes. So make sure that you install those. You also, back to Gary again. You did a live stream, Gary, at the beginning of this month. When was it? Was it the 4th? Was it the 5th? It was the 3rd. It was neither of those. And it was about chocolate extension packages. Do you want to kind of take us through a little bit of that?
Sure, yeah. So this is another entry in our Back to Basics live stream. So what we chose to talk about this time round was extension packages. So without going over all the content again, as Paul said, there is a live stream available that you can go back and watch. We've also written it as a blog post that you can go and have a look at. So what we're highlighting here is or a mechanism to make reusage of code within Chocolatey installation packaging scripts in order to make code reusable in a Chocolatey specific way is through extension packages. So what that means is that you can take any helper functions, any common code, you can wrap it up in a PowerShell module and add it into a Chocolatey extension package, and then you can version control that extension package as you would any application. So if you need to ship a new version of the module, a new version of the scripts, you wrap it up in a new version of the Chocolatey package, you install or upgrade it onto the machine, and then you get consistent usage of those commands, those functions, within all of your Chocolatey packages. And the way that we do that is through dependencies. So if you have got one of these extension packages and you have a Chocolatey package that requires one of those helper functions, you can just take a dependency on that extension package, and Chocolatey CLI will automatically install and make available all of the helper functions within that extension package. So it's one of those. It's It's fair to say it's one of those lesser known functions of Chocolatey, but you actually see it in a lot of use in the Chocolatey community repository. There's quite a few extension packages maintained by the community for things like installing fonts or figuring out what Windows updates are needed, or figuring out what Visual Studio extension packages or how they can be installed. There's extension packages for lots of different things. They're all in the link documentation on the blog post. So I encourage everyone to go back and have a look at the live stream, and then come back to us with any questions that you might have. Because it's one of those lesser known functions, and we wanted to highlight it in our live stream.
And one other lesser known function is Chocolatey template packages. And we're doing a live stream on that on the, the 7th of November at 4 p.m. I think it's 4 p.m. UTC. I don't know if the clocks have changed at that point. It'll be announced if you check out ch0.co/spotlight. You'll be able to find out the times for that. Alternatively, check Discord and the event will be on there. It'll also be listed on YouTube and Twitch doesn't allow you to do that early on, but it'll be listed on YouTube as well. So the final one is we've got a new full stack software engineer. Alex joined our team on, I don't even know the date. When was that? That was the 16th of September. It shows you how good I was. I remembered that date. And it's awesome to have him on board. You can find out more about Alex on our blog, and I'll pop the details onto the screen if I can find them. Where is it? blog.chocolatey.org. You can find that blog post about Alex. But yeah, Alex joins the development team here at Chocolatey Software, and he'll be working on both the front end with Steph. Hopefully, all of you know who Steph is. Steph does all of our front end stuff up until Alex joined, and back end, working on the back end as well with Corey, Kim, Rain, and Gary. So it's awesome to have Alex on board. So welcome, Alex. And as I said, you can find out more about Alex on our blog. Read that blog post. Okay, moving on. So that's all the Chocolatey Software news. It's fantastic. But if you want to watch any of the past streams, like the Product Spotlight one that Gary had mentioned, I popped it onto the screen there, and I'll just put it on again. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. For those of you listening on podcast, it's youtube.com/Chocolatey Software, all one word, Chocolatey Software. And you can watch all of those streams back that we have created. So just jumping on to some open source news, something quite close to our hearts is we've got an open source, a big open source repository on GitHub, both for the Chocolatey and the Chocolatey community organisation. But open source maintainers underpaid, swamped by security, and going grey. This is something that we talked about in the past, about just being swamped by security. Security issues that are being raised. Also, the other thing that's been happening recently, we haven't picked up on it, is the amount of spam that's going through GitHub at the moment, and that is also swamping maintainers. But that's something we'll probably pick up and become more relevant kind of next time when we're there. But Gary, you've been looking into this. Tell us more.
I mean, I think both you and I can testify to the fact, Paul, that we are getting old and a bit grey. So it is happening. But
Very good.
what this article was really talking about is that Tidelift have published their 2024 State of the Open Source Maintainer report. So it's available on the linked blog post for you to go and have a look at. So it was a survey that was answered by 400 maintainers who are currently active in the open source community. And what it reported on, basically, or what some of the conclusions that they've come to, is that people are getting old, and the bigger part of that is that they're not being replaced by younger people coming through. So it was quite concerning to see that in terms of the number of maintainers, the percentage of maintainers that were under 26 has dropped from 25% in 2021 to 12% in this last year. So it's quite a significant drop of young people or young blood coming into the open source community. And the other side of that, obviously, is that the number of people in the older categories has doubled since the last report in 2021. So I've been in this particular open source game, for nigh on 13, 14 years. So I'm probably I'm on the older end of that spectrum. But it is a bit concerning to think there aren't people coming through to help pick up the work that goes with it, because what they're also pointing out, unfortunately, is that a lot of open source work, as we all know, is still unpaid. People treat it as a hobby, but if people are not getting paid and treating it as a hobby, then they end up walking away from the projects, and projects start to become non-maintained. Now, we are in a unique position here at Chocolatey that we do open source work, but we also get paid our salary from Chocolatey Software, which has been able to establish the commercial side of it. But not all open source projects go that route. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation there. But the other part of this, and it kind of touches on the things that we have spoken about before, is that the report also went into artificial intelligence, and whether artificial intelligence was going to have a detrimental impact on open source contributions, or whether they were going to have a positive benefit. I just seen James's comment in the chat. So the takeaway from that was that of the 400 maintainers that were polled, 2/3 of the maintainers said that they were less inclined to accept pull requests from contributors known to use AI coding tools. So there's, within this selection of people, they also said that only 22% of them were somewhat positive or extremely positive about AI. Again, the majority of people saying they were either meh on AI or that they just didn't trust it. Now, I personally think I kind of fall into that sort of area as well, but that's mainly because I haven't really looked into AI and the benefits that can be got from them. But it is quite concerning that the driving force for AI is that it can make things better, or that it can help you do all the work that you need. But a lot of these respondents to this survey were basically saying they can't trust it, or they don't want to bring people on or trust people that are coming into the team that are relying on the AI tools as opposed to having the fundamental or the foundational knowledge to be able to contribute to the project. So, yeah, it all in all, it wasn't a good report from what I was able to garner. So, I don't know what that says. It could just be where we are right now, and next year it'll be better. Don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Do you think it will be better next year?
I mean, in terms of what I've seen, in terms of um, these tools that we have, I can only assume that they're going to get better in terms of the responses that they're able to provide and the suggestions that they're able to make. But all in all, it still comes down to that trust factor. Regardless of how good it is, are you as a maintainer or as you as a contributor to a project, are you going to trust that what it's giving you is right, or do you have all the background knowledge, or is there enough there to start bringing those into those projects that you're contributing to? And yeah, I can understand why people would be reluctant to do that. It's one of these situations we are just going to have to wait and see. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody's got the answer.
You're right. We have kind of talked about this before, but I see it a lot. The self-entitlement for people, from people towards open source maintainers, I think is quite shocking.
Yes.
And it's only got worse. Again, from my experience, and it's going to continue. So you've got individuals who have that self entitlement, and then you've organisations and companies that consume resources and put pressure on maintainers and projects to provide them with basically free development work. I don't see this getting any better. Until I think one of the things, just to jump back to what we talked about with Raymond Hill and uBlock Origin Lite, one of the things he was quite clear about, and you can find that out on the link when we release a blog post for this with all the links about what we talk about. And in there's actually a link to a GitHub issue where he made it very, very clear that he is not taking the burden on to continue, working with Mozilla / Firefox. And that's his decision, and nobody else should be able to tell him what burden he should take on. And I think until more maintainers make those choices and don't accept the pressure, that things won't change. But I mean, that's easy to say. These are just words. But until that happens, I really don't see any change, and it's very, very disappointing that people are like that. But the world.
There is. I mean,
the world is.
on that topic, there was I was reading through a GitHub issue just recently. It was yesterday. There's a bug in Git, in the most recent release of Git, that makes accessing or fetching from a repository over SSH really, really slow. And by really, really slow, I mean something that would typically take 2 seconds now takes 2 hours. But some of the comments on that threads, that was along the lines of, don't understand how something as critical as this could have fallen through. Where was the testing and all of this sort of stuff? And I'm like, dude, slow down a little bit there. This is a open source project maintained by people who do a lot of work on a reasonably complicated system, and you're giving them shit because something that you are dependent on doesn't work. But give them a break. Just some of the comments in that thread was just, I just shook my head. I'm like, how do you even begin responding to things like that? You just can't. But the thing was
that.
as well, there was a patch version available, but it meant you had to go and do some work. You had to go and install it in maybe a slightly different way than you normally would have. But the fix was there. It just wasn't released as an official binary yet. And the amount of times that I saw that repeated throughout, it's just like, just go and install the patch. Stop. It takes you longer to type that message than it would to go and get the patch and install it.
Or just go backwards, right?
Go down and go and do it. But it was just, some of the comments were horrible. They really were.
But somebody in the internet was wrong, and that's the important thing. It's I'd seen some of the comments on that. It was, as I said, it's going to be a problem until people put their foot down and just say, no more.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for free. There's no expectation. If you don't like what I'm doing, go and use something else. But that's, as I said, that's easier said than done. But moving on to something else in the open source world, I don't know if anybody has been following the WordPress. How do you know what to call it? Fire. It's just
dumpster fire, like
yes, thank you, dumpster fire.
toddler fight. Like I don't know what this is. Yeah,
yes, it is a bit like a toddler fight.
a little bit.
Between Automatic, Matt Mullenweg, WordPress.org, WordPress, WP Engine. They're just at it. I think that it all seems to boil down to WordPress. This is the other thing. WordPress, Automatic, and Matt Mullenweg, and is it WordPress.org? Yeah, are all kind of owned by Matt, well, are controlled, should I say, by Matt Mullenweg. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Which is a problem in itself. I think this is a highlight, and this is now a problem. But what it seems to come down to something called WP Engine, who are a WordPress host. They're using, or WordPress is claiming they're using a trademark and confusing people by using the WP part of WP Engine. However, in WordPress's own guidelines for trademarks, what WP is not mentioned in there. They don't. They said WordPress is ours, and they've also put in. They've actually recently submitted a trademark request for, is it hosting WordPress and managing WordPress? I think it is. I'm trying to look at my notes here. But they haven't done for hosted WordPress, sorry, and managed WordPress, yeah. But they haven't got anything for WP. So WP Engine is in the clear there, but they're complaining they're not. And the solution to this apparently is to get WP Engine to license that trademark. So you go, well, it's not a trademark to begin with, WP, but let's gloss over that a little bit. But they want 8% of the gross revenue of WP Engine on a yearly basis. WP Engine is apparently pulling in approximately $500 million in revenue. So they're wanting a huge chunk of money from this company just because they host WordPress. And the whole thing has blown up because there's a problem in regards to the WordPress being open source to begin with. One person being in control of all of this, saying various things I would suggest are not professional. The whole thing is just ridiculous. And just to pour more oil on the fire, WordPress.org have since taken control of the WP Engine plugin called Advanced Custom Fields, and they've released a new version of it, claiming there's a security vulnerability. I haven't yet been able to find out what this security vulnerability is. I don't know whether they're making it up. I don't know, but the reason that it wasn't updated is because WP Engine had their access to WordPress.org removed. So they can't go and even update their own plugin. All of their customers that are hosted on WP Engine's hosting platform can't update their plugins or their themes, leading to potential vulnerabilities and various security issues, depending, WordPress itself, the whole ecosystem is rife with malware and vulnerabilities. It has been for a long time. So that one of the things you do is you constantly update your plugins. It's just what you do. But when you can't update your plugins, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to these things. So but just to top it all off, 159 Automatic employees took a severance package. So I think they offered them, it was $30,000 or so many months of salary. I can't remember how many months it was, if they didn't agree with the direction the company was going in. So 159 of them said, yeah, we don't agree, and have since left Automatic. 80% of those seem to be in the kind of ecosystem, the plugin team, the ones that can manage that.
That's what I heard.
Things. And those that are left got 200 special shares as a token of gratitude for staying. So I don't know where this goes, but I think one of the things that seems to be coming out, as I mentioned, is that it's highlighted the fact that the Matt is in control of all these organizations, quote unquote, and 40% of websites apparently are hosted with WordPress, and that's a huge number of sites, a huge amount of software that's being used and controlled by one person. it's going to continue to blow up. WP Engine have actually sued Matt and WordPress. I think that was the beginning of October, 3rd of October. So there's a lawsuit happened. So yeah, let's see how that plays out. But again, this is why open source maintainers get, because they're building, developers are building plugins and extensions for WordPress, and then now we're being told, or it seems to be WordPress is telling them that we have a trademark on certain things. They're going, well, what direction do we go? You're going to do that to us next? What
Exactly.
And if it's your revenue, if your company's based on it, or if you're just an individual developer getting revenue in from that, things become a bit unclear. And what happens is you just move platforms. You go, I'll go and develop a plugin for that thing over there instead, where it's much more secure and stable. So they're shooting themselves in the foot. It's just a complete and utter mess. So we'll see how that plays out. I am interested to see how all this goes. But
Exactly, it's one of
Stand
these.
next to this.
Yeah, it's one of these things you watch with a morbid fascination as to what's actually going to go on, because it is so high level. But when it comes down to two big, like they've both got accounts on X stroke Twitter, and when you see the back and forth between the WordPress account and the ACF, is it ACF? The ACF account, and how they were talking back to each other. It's like just go in a room together and just figure it out. We don't need to see all of this stuff. It just tarnishes everything with this brush. It would just be much better and much more civilized, I think, if they just aired their grievances in private and got it fixed and then came back.
100%. I think doing it in public is making it worse. It's going to make customer, like, they are going to lose customers for this. Like, I wish I was a Hugo consultant. Like, I stand to make bank.
Well, there's
people looking to jump ship to a different technology, right?
I noticed that one of the importers for Ghost, they released a new version that was branded specifically for WordPress to Ghost, whereas before it was just Ghost Importer, I think it was. Now it's like, take all your WordPress stuff and go over to this Ghost platform. So yeah, they're if nothing else, they're going to see an exodus of people wanting to move over to something that is maybe a bit more done in the open and not controlled, as you say, Paul, by one person who controls everything and all the parts of it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch and read about it. So it might be a topic of future
it will be
software streams
yeah.
that plays out.
I mean, I've used WordPress in the past. I don't use WordPress for my website, but yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. But mainly because of the open source aspects and one person controlling all of this. So that's kind of my interest. So moving on, talking about I suppose trolling each other. They kind of were. Cloudflare beats a patent troll so badly they won't troll anymore. I've read a lot about patent trolls, particular ones, and it's really, really satisfying to see this happen. Stephen,
oh my gosh, this is probably my favorite tech story of 2024. To be honest, when I saw this break, I was like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever. So yeah, this company, like this patent troll, like they form these companies and go after companies that don't have legal departments or have enough money that they just throw money at the patent troll to go away, basically, and then the patent troll makes a bunch of money, they go on, they find the next one, and the cycle continues. Well, they thought it would be a good idea to go after an arcane old patent that Cloudflare held regarding some super old technology, and Cloudflare got a hold of their legal department and reached into their pocketbook and said, yeah, let's play ball, right? So they took this patent troll to court and they stomped them so bad that the patent troll is like, yeah, we're done. We're not going to do this again. Like, it's in writing. They are not going to go after patents anymore. Cloudflare kicked their butts so bad. It was awesome. It was great doing the research for this one because they just stomped them. Like, you hear about, I don't know, these companies and stuff to just throw tantrums in public, and you just want to wring their necks, and then to see this patent troll company like throw their weight around, well, attempt to throw their weight around and get their way, and then to realize that they poked a bigger bear and just get stomped on. Oh, it was so good. This is definitely my favorite story of 2024 for sure. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's as you said, it's really good to see that a bit of karma visiting some
Yeah.
patent
Now, if
trolls.
only it was something that had an impact on all the other patent trolls that are out
Yeah,
there. Like this
well,
is one fish in a very, very big pond, right?
but it's still
But at
one
least
fish
it,
smaller.
yeah, exactly. It's something, right? And maybe the news that, hey, you can beat these things will make other companies be like, no, I'm not going to write you a check. I'm just going to take you to court. Like, I'm going to fight it. So
Yeah,
as maybe this is the start of more. Who knows? I hope it's the start of more. That'd be really cool to see. But yeah, that definitely a really cool story. And props to Cloudflare for sticking up and fighting the good fight, as it were.
absolutely. For a change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on. Where are we? We're 13 minutes left. Gary, cloud providers use nuclear. I should actually have said cloud providers go nuclear. That'd have been cooler. It'd have been a catchier headline. I'll just change it in the notes.
Yeah, so this is I'm sort of torn with this one, to be honest, but because initially we saw an article drop that Microsoft were going to work with, or they're proposing a deal to work with 3 Mile Island to restart one of their units in order to provide nuclear power for their data center needs and also for their AI systems in the US. So I thought initially I was like, okay, that's fine. Microsoft are doing Microsoft, and they're generating lots of they have a need for lots of electricity, so they're going to use a nuclear power station to do that. Okay, but then another article dropped to say that Google are doing the same thing with a nuclear energy startup called Kairos Power. So I'm like, okay, so this is obviously a thing now that our energy consumption needs have got back to the point that we need more nuclear power, and they were restarting already decommissioned power plants, and then starting with a new new way of doing nuclear energy from this Kairos Power. So part of the reason that I'm conflicted by this is because initially I was like, we had nuclear power a long time ago, and then there was lots of things that went wrong. So there was Chernobyl, there was Fukushima, there was all these things that meant that people shied away from nuclear power because it wasn't as safe as maybe we wanted it to be. The surprising takeaway from both of these articles for me was that nuclear power is still generating almost 19% of the total electricity in the US last year. I didn't think it was as much as that, but obviously I've not been keeping up with things. So there is a need for nuclear power, and I understand the need for it in terms of having a stable backbone for the energy consumption needs, because using renewable energies, what they're great when they're working, when there's sun, when there's tidal power, when there's wind, they're all great. But when there's none of those things, where do you get the electricity from? So I understand the need to have a backbone for these things. But as Paul kind of highlighted to me when we were going through this, the two things are nuclear energy and a startup company. It's not really the two things that you want to go together, because a lot of stuff could go wrong. But what I did take away from this article as well is there's some of this technology that this startup company is using is some of the technology that's coming out of China, where they have been investing heavily in nuclear energy production. So taking some of the learnings from them and bringing it over, so it makes it safer, because it's not the same. It's not the same technology of old. They're using a new system where if something were to go wrong, the way that the power is or the energy is expelled, it is not as disastrous as it once was. So I'm torn, because I understand the need for it, but I'm also like, no, is my takeaway. I've actually done some work in a nuclear power station. I had to go into a nuclear power station to do some work in a previous life, and I'm not going to lie, I was a bit scared about going into it. I mean, it's a nuclear power station. It's got armed guards at the front door that you don't get in until all the stuff happens. But it's technology and stuff that can go boom. I mean, we've got technology where we get people's passwords being stolen and hacked all over the place. Do we really want that happening with nuclear power? I don't know. I just worry. So it's one more thing to keep me up at night now, Paul. So thank you for sending me off to read about that stuff. But yeah, cloud providers are indeed going nuclear.
I'm sure there's a movie about this, like large multi-billion-dollar or trillion-dollar companies buying power stations and the dystopian future that occurs afterwards. So maybe we're just living out a movie.
Maybe we are. Yes.
Yes.
It's the next
in slow motion.
blockbuster hit, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. It's these things are, and that movie doesn't end well. It's not a family movie. It's not, and everybody rides off into the sun. Well, maybe they do ride off into the burning sunset. But yeah,
and the other takeaway, the quote that I've taken out from this is this agreement is a major milestone in Microsoft's efforts to help decarbonize the grid in support of our commitment to become carbon negative. And I totally get that, because nuclear doesn't have the same impact on as other ways of generating electricity, but it can also go boom. So yes, we're offsetting the carbon emissions, but that's a big cloud of stuff over there that's just gone boom. So I'm torn. I really am.
I've seen the documentary, like the entire town surrounding 3 Mile Island. There is no town. Like they all had to leave.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't live there anymore.
But I get a bit like you. I understand that they want to reduce their carbon footprint, and that's great. But you've got the carbon footprint in one hand, and the fact you have to bury everything in a mountain for 1,000,000 years after you've used it on the other one. I'm exaggerating slightly, but it's not that much far off. So you know what I mean? It's not completely, it's a green energy, it's nice and clean, it's great, it's wonderful. It's not. It's got problems, it's got implications for the environment. Radiation's deadly. And as I said, you've got to bury it in a mountain or stick it underwater for so many, decades, etc. So there are implications to it. And that's implications I think we gloss over a lot when we talk about nuclear power. But yeah, so we'll see if that dystopian movie plays out. Maybe we'll be able to catch it on Netflix. Or something, or your preferred streamer of choice, because we're all about choice here. But moving on, Stevie, this is a really sad one. Internet Archive hack, data breach.
I don't understand this one. Like, why? Why would you hack the Internet Archive? Like, just why? There's not. It's not like there was that much like personal information that could be stolen from this. Like, it's the Internet Archive. You get to log in, you can save your stuff, you can do stuff with it. There's a username, there's a password, there's an email address. I mean, yeah, you can get that information and then try to use that information other places. So it has a knock-on effect. But dude, this is such a helpful service. I love the Wayback Machine because how many times have you went to look for something and they moved the cheese and it's gone or whatever, or something's been shut down and you're like, oh, I can go find it over here. And it's equally great that they've partnered with Google now and you can get Wayback Machine results in your searches, which is quite cool too. So I don't know, maybe this partnership with Google is like why they were DDoS and all this stuff was taken. I don't know. Maybe it was somebody like trying to get at Google for some stupid reason, or who knows. But maybe with this partnership, they'll be able to amp up their protections of the site and stuff. Maybe Google will come to the rescue a little bit and be like, hey, come hang out under our umbrella. We'll protect you. Or it could be, Google does what Google does, and all of a sudden it's the Google back machine someday because they just take it over. Like, who knows? But yeah, it was pretty sad to see that they had gotten hacked. I think Troy Hunt said within like 72 hours he would have all the stuff up on the way back, or all the information would be on haveibeenpwned.com. So you
Yeah.
can check if you're vulnerable. There was a security researcher that actually provided his decrypted hash of his password and like validated that everything that he saw was factually accurate. That yes, this is in fact a hack. I've confirmed that my data was in there and that it matches what I have on record. So it is a real thing. Check have I been pwned. I would imagine by now this was a little while ago. So check it out. See if you're vulnerable or not. I don't have an account with the Wayback Machine. I just click links and try and use it. So I know I'm not vulnerable because I don't have any skin in the game there. But yeah, super sad when stuff like that happens to really cool projects.
Agreed.
Just be nice.
It is. It's one of the most useful projects on the internet. It's preserving the history of it.
Yeah,
And I've
it
popped
really
the
is.
donate to the Internet Archive link onto the
Cool.
screen for those of you watching us on live stream. If you're listening to us on podcast, it's archive.org/donate. I think it's a great resource to donate to. One of that ones for me, it's a no-brainer. Just for what they do. So I would recommend everybody go and donate to them to keep this running. Okay, so we're nearly at the end of today's stream. I just want to pick up a few honourable mentions. The irony of this one is not lost on me, but Google complains to the EU over Microsoft cloud practices. It's looking at, or it claims that Microsoft makes customers pay a 400% markup to run Windows servers on non-Azure clouds. Mozilla fixes a Firefox 0-day exploited in attacks. So if you've got versions that are not or that are earlier than 131.0.2 or ESR versions earlier than 115.16.1 or 128.3.1, please go and update right now. There is a CVE for that, and the details will be in the description when this goes when we update this tomorrow. Dell has been hacked again. Apparently twice in a week. We talked about this in previous streams about hacks for Dell. So the breach leaked various data from Dell's tools that they're using, Atlassian tools such as Jira, Jenkins, Confluence, and also internal databases. So if you're a Dell customer, you may have a hard time. Maybe check that one out and see if what's been leaked there. There's also a huge one. We deliberately didn't cover it because there's been a huge amount of coverage, so you probably already know about it. If you're running Linux, the Common Unix Printing System, or CUPS, there's got multiple vulnerabilities in that one. Again, we'll have the details in the description. Winamp, if you're old like me and Gary, and not young like Stevie, you'll remember Winamp. Well, the source has now been released. We covered that in a previous live stream as well. We were kind of waiting for the source to be released. So that has happened. And that's on GitHub. GitHub.com/Winamp desktop, all one word, /Winamp. You'll be able to find that there. And finally, Google's planning to let you run Linux apps on Android, which for me is a little bit exciting, just like on Chrome OS, it can currently do that. You can still do it now. You can do it with apps, but they're going to officially support it. And you can run Debian in a virtual machine on your Android device. Potentially, it's just going to be intended for Chromebooks, but again, we'll see what happens there. Some events. PowerShell Summit, 7th to 10th April 2025. Some of the Chocolatey team will be there. We may be sponsoring. That's not all been sorted out yet. And that's in Bellevue, Washington, USA. And the PowerShell Conference EU has just been announced. It's the 23rd to the 26th of June 2025, and that's in Malmo, Sweden. Hopefully I'm pronouncing Malmo correctly. So yeah, that will be exciting. There'll probably be one or two Chocolatey team there as well. So we're just going to wrap up now. So thank you, Gary, Stevie. Really appreciate you coming on. This is your first season of Unpacking Software, and we really want to know what you think about it, what you think about all of the streams that we do here at Chocolatey Software. So Please let us know, is it the right format, is it the right length, do you want any ideas of what you'd like to see? So if you're watching us on the live stream, you'll see the details there on the screen, but if you're listening on podcast, it's ch0.co/stream survey. And to ensure you're notified of all the great content from Chocolatey Software, ensure you join our GitHub, our community hub on Discord, subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter or X, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We're on all of those, and you can find all of those links on our homepage, chocolatey.org. Scroll all the way to the bottom, or you can find them in the description of wherever you found this content. As I mentioned earlier on, join our next live stream on Twitch or YouTube on Thursday, 7th of November, where we will be going back to basics again to look at the upcoming release of Chocolatey template packages and how they make your package creation life easier. Myself and Gary will be doing that. Gary will be doing most of the hard work. So we hope to see you there, the same bat time and the same bat channel. Bye-bye.
See you later.
See you, folks.